Good evening and welcome to Why This Night is Different from All Other Nights. I am so delighted that you're joining us on this night before Passover, the most unusual of Passovers, as you can imagine, and I'm sure you're all anticipating this. So thank you for joining us. I'm Rabbi Sherre Hirsch. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of American Jewish University. And if you think you haven't heard of us, you actually may have. If you're an alumni of Camp Alonim, or you went to the Brandeis Bardeen Institute or BCI, you actually are a part of the American Jewish University. We are located in Los Angeles, and we have a rabbinical school. What is our secret gem is that we are non-denominational. We are not membership-based. We are an open tent for all humans to come and learn Jewish wisdom. And with that, I'm so excited to introduce our guest for tonight. Let me start with Amanda Berman, who is the founder and an executive director of Zioness. So before I tell you her impressive resume, because she is a lawyer and she went to Penn, so for all the you Penn people out there, shout out to you. I have been following her career for quite some time. She has founded the Zioness Movement. And for you, those of you that don't know, it is activating Zionists on the progressive left to stand proudly in social justice spaces as Jews and as Zionists. She is a woman who has strength and a voice, and she is inspiring tons of people to find their own voice, and I am so delighted that you're here with us. Along with Amanda, a longtime friend, Archie Gottesman, the co-founder of JewBelong, and an amazing voice as well. I'm so excited that we're an all-women panel tonight. JewBelong is truly an innovation to welcome all Jews and all people into this wisdom. I think you were ahead of the curve in so many ways, and I know so many people have been profoundly impacted by your wisdom and what you have done to make Judaism compelling, relevant, and interesting for the world. You're an incredible philanthropist, an amazing woman. I know your daughter serves in the IDF, so there is such a proud Zionist in you as well. So I'm delighted to have you both. And so I want to kick off the evening and let everybody know we'll spend about 25 minutes talking, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, and we look forward to hearing your questions. If you're just tuning in, I'm so delighted to have Amanda Berman of Zioness and Archie Gottesman of JewBelong. So both of you are women who founded Jewish organizations, and both of you have made them into something far greater than I think any one of our ancestors could have imagined. So let's start with you, Archie. Why don't you tell me a little bit about JewBelong and why you founded it?
Thanks. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. And yeah, and especially the night before Passover, this is exciting. So I founded JewBelong because I thought that bottom line is Judaism needs a rebrand. I know it's a religion with fabulous wisdom. I think that Jews have contributed so much to our world for like thousands of years, yet we don't always lead with our best foot forward. And I'll just tell you really quickly why I started it. It was a long time ago, but I met my husband who grew up United Methodist, and I said I wanted to have a Jewish home. We were falling in love, and he said, "Fine, I'll convert." And it wasn't quite as quick as that, but it wasn't a very complicated or messy conversion story. It was like Harry was like, "Fine, I love you," and Judaism he was all in, and he still is all in. But I honestly, going through that was probably one of the best things for my Jewish muscle, marrying Gary and watching this, because all of a sudden I saw Judaism the way it looked like to a rookie, to Gary. And I was like, what is it with this religion? Like, I would go to a Jewish experience, a Shabbat dinner, a service, you name it. And it was always a little too complicated, and it was always a little bit too inside baseball. And it wasn't terribly friendly. Friendly might be the wrong word, but it just, and I'm like, oh, here I've got this, willing person, and to a it's like we don't treat our customers as if they have to make a choice. And I'll just add one more thing to that, and I think that Sarah Hurwitz says it very, very well in her book, but I have been living this, is that we all have a choice whether to be Jewish. It wasn't like this back in the shtetl. If you're born in the shtetl, you were Jewish because your whole community is Jewish. And like, what choice did you have? You're not going to leave the community, so of course you were Jewish. But in our world today, we all have choices how to spend our time and our spirituality and our money and our everything. And Judaism needs to market itself as if we are competing with yoga and the Unitarian Church and you name it. And JewBelong, and that's why I founded JewBelong.
Well, and I think what's so compelling about your message, I love that story, because Judaism has wisdom that is good for all people, right? And I always say it's not Judaism, but it's what Jews have done to it. So you're actually bringing a whole new marketing campaign, and I love your ads. They're all over the city, and we'll talk about them in a minute. And we have Sarah Hurwitz coming up on Biyachad in a few weeks, so I love that you mentioned her. Great. Amanda, tell me about Zioness, and I'm so excited.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so excited and really grateful for the work that you're doing at AJU. Zioness is a relatively new organization. We're less than 2 years old, and we've only had full-time staff for about a year. And it launched totally by accident, honestly. Mostly as a reaction. It's become, I think, a very forward-thinking organization, but the launch is a sad story of a lot of Jews feeling alienated from our organic political home in progressive movements, spaces that, deeply matter to us as Jews who are committed to social and racial and economic and gender justice. And I think the Passover story is really a perfect time to talk about the Jewish commitment to the marginalized and the vulnerable among us. And, as a progressive, as someone who was raised by a feminist who's watching right now, a woman who taught me that women's empowerment was really part of my DNA and also part of my Jewish identity, I really felt like I wasn't welcome in a lot of the social justice spaces and movements in this country that had always been, the political spaces where I was raised, the issues that I cared about and that mattered, and the ways that I spent my time in college and in law school. And it was because, as a Jew, I felt really marginalized and actually targeted in a lot of spaces as a Zionist, because there is this creeping narrative that Zionism is all the worst things that the world can be: apartheid and genocide and racism and colonialism and imperialism. I mean, you name it. The worst features of any society are what people now claim that Israel is, and the movement to establish and secure a Jewish state in Israel is. So after a lot of movements declared that Zionists weren't welcome, or the Jewish stars weren't welcome as, quote, Zionist symbols of racism and oppression, which is what happened at the Chicago Slutwalk in August of 2017, Zioness launched as a way for Jews like me, and there were so many of us, and the more I spoke to my friends, that I've been doing this work, progressive activist work, with my whole life, and the Jews in my world, which were always, my friends were always Jewish. And I realized that everyone felt the same way I did. And I realized I wasn't alone, and I wasn't unique in, being committed both to my Jewish identity, which included inherently Zionism, and also my progressive identity. I wasn't alone in wanting to own and wear proudly both of those pieces of my identity. And so when Zioness launched, it sort of grew like wildfire, and people all over the country started reaching out and saying, we need to have a chapter in our local community. We want a place where we can be engaged in all of these activist spaces that matter to us without checking our Zionism at the door, without submitting ourselves to any litmus test on Israel policy. When someone says, you're not welcome here in this progressive space, you're not welcome to fight for reproductive justice in America until you tell us what you think about settlement policy. I mean, this is a real conversation that happens in activist spaces now. And so Zioness gives people strength in numbers and a community, where they feel like they're part of something bigger, and where they realize that the whole Jewish community is with them, that Jews are overwhelmingly committed both to progressive policies and, the advancement of the progressive agenda, and also to Zionism. So it's sort of
I love that both of you came in through a personal experience, and both of you really empathized with those that are felt alienated. And I can't think of a more appropriate time to be talking about welcoming the stranger and having empathy on this night before Passover, because that is the center of this holiday, is to really embrace the other and to make space for them. So this is a Passover like none other. I'll start with you, Amanda. What do you think Jews are craving this Passover? I mean, we are rewriting the rules without a question. The Orthodox Union has come out and said you can Zoom. So I don't think any of us saw that coming. So tell me about what do you think Jews are craving? What does this freedom look like? And maybe how you're understanding it differently.
Well, I think Jews, in the context of Passover, are craving the same thing that everyone in the world is craving right now, which is human connection. And obviously, in the time of a holiday, it is extra painful that we can't be around our loved ones and that we can't be, outside of our, the smallest, whoever we're frankly sharing a home with right now. And I think, one of the things that I have personally noticed with coronavirus and the people in my world that I talk to all the time is that it's sort of amplifying people's vulnerabilities, whatever your vulnerability is, whatever your biggest life challenge is, whatever, you feel like you need to struggle with every day. This situation that we're all in is amplifying that. And so for people who live alone, or people who are, with a nuclear family, a small nuclear family, who love holidays because it brings them, into contact with the people that they love the most in the world, this is extra challenging. And so, I would say I really hope that people will take advantage of everything technology has to offer. And for people who don't have a Zoom option, I mean, this is one of the things about JewBelong that I love the most. What they're doing on Thursday, I think is amazing. I'll let Archie talk about it, but reach out to people, for people who don't feel like they have an option for, a Zoom Seder or something. There are so many. I know some of them are public and some of them are not, but on Passover, we always, as you said, Cherry, we always welcome the stranger. It's always, that is a core central component of this holiday. And I don't know anyone who wouldn't be more than happy to welcome someone, especially to their Zoom Seder where they don't even have to cook for you.
Right. That's the bonus of this Seder is you can come and we don't even have to set a place.
Just a link.
Yeah.
Right.
Archie, tell me what you think people are craving and if this Passover has opened up a new pathway to freedom.
I think they're a lot, like Amanda just said, they're craving connection. And the thing about both JewBelong and Zioness, and it's really interesting, is that, especially with JewBelong, I'll speak more to that, is that we are, in a way, speaking for those who are not sort of in there with their voice. But the odd thing is, when I look around at the Jewish community in the tri-state, in America, but I live in the tri-state area, it's like the people who are the JewBelong people are by far the most numerous, but they're just not the loudest because they just don't care that much. And I'm going to just show you this picture that I hope you can see it. So if you can read it, but it says an overly simplified version of Jews in America. And
love the visual.
Great. The people in the center are the people, they're like their Jewishness touches their every moment. They're the ones, their kids go to day school, every holiday they're celebrating it. In the white circle, that's kind of like me. Like we do Shabbat, but are we cleaning every bit of chametz out of the house tonight? No, we're not, whatever. Anyway, and
no judgment.
No judgment. I know. Why did I even bring that up? I'm embarrassing myself. That's a word we have in embarrassment. And so Judaism is in my zone. Okay, like some of my philanthropy goes to Judaism, but it's not. I don't live my life in this complete Jewish world. But the red, which there's so many people who are in the red circle, that's the JewBelong target audience, and those are the people who, they don't dislike Judaism. They just don't, it's just not part of their zone. Like they'll come for a Passover Seder if someone invites them, but they're not most likely going to do a Seder because they just may not feel educated enough to do it. It just doesn't go in their zone. So sometimes I feel those of us in the blue circle and the white circles are like, how could they not know about Passover? Or people who are on JewBelong sometimes are like, what's this free trip to Israel? And I'm like, how could you have never heard of Birthright? Birthright's a pretty big Jewish organization. And it's because JewBelong is reaching people who are really just unaffiliated, disengaged from the Jewish world. But the way I look at it is we need everyone who wants to have a Jewish identity, and welcoming them with sort of this radical welcoming is so totally important. And I wanted to say one more thing, because I didn't really explain exactly what JewBelong is. And what it is a it's a website with resources. So basically, I've got a lot of show and tell. This is the Haggadah. If you go on JewBelong, you can download our Haggadah. It's free, and people do, and it's funny and it's interesting, and there's parts that make you cry. And we have a booklet that's our Haggadah, but we have a booklet for Rosh Hashanah, because newsflash, not everybody goes to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah, and I'm not going to change that, but I want to give people a resource to say, fine, do something, like celebrate the fact that it's a new year. And beautiful booklet. It's about atonement, and it's about just what we want to be in the new year. And then we have one for Shabbat, which is fantastic. And anyway, so mostly the major holidays. Then we have explanations for all sorts of Jewish life cycle events. So that's what it actually is a resource for people.
I love that, Archie. And what I want to tell people is one of the things that we're very focused on at AJU, and if you're just tuning in, you're answering to Biyachad together with Archie Gottesman of JewBelong and Amanda Berman of Zioness, and myself, Rabbi Sherre Hirsch, the Chief Innovation Officer of American Jewish University. What we're really focused in on is there's many doorways to enter Judaism. And I think both of you are really emphasizing that. And I think our tradition for 5,000 years has literally, during Passover, said, open the door and let the stranger in, right? We opened the door for Elijah because anybody could be Elijah, the person that's heralding the world to come. And God willing, that Elijah's coming. So Amanda, I want to turn to you now. We're understanding freedom and oppression a little bit differently. We are homebound, stay at home. Who do you see now as oppressed, and how has your definition of oppressed changed in this last 3-4 weeks?
Yeah, it's such an important question, and it's funny is not the word, but I wrote an article for the Forward a couple of weeks ago. They did like a series on, Passover in the time of coronavirus, and I wrote it, I think 2 weeks ago now, and the amount that life has changed every single day since then, and what I've witnessed in terms of, who is the most vulnerable among us and how that has changed. And really, it's not a change. It's not, it's the same people that have always been marginalized and vulnerable in our world, the world we live in right now. But it is so beyond comprehension right now when we think about the communities that are being hardest hit by coronavirus. I just read today that 70% of the deaths in Chicago were African American. That is so astonishing and incomprehensibly, it's horrifying that we live in a world where a statistic like that could exist. And the reason I brought up the Forward piece is because I wrote in there, and I have it in front of me, I wrote, it's clear that coronavirus does not discriminate in who it infects or whose life it ultimately takes. Status and wealth cannot protect nor immunize. And it is penetratingly obvious that we live, whatever. That's, the point is, everyone, it doesn't matter your status, you can be hit with coronavirus. The Prime Minister of the UK right now is in intensive care, and the Prince, was diagnosed with coronavirus. But in terms of who is harming the most, it's the same communities, but at exponential levels that have always been marginalized in our world, and the people that I think that we need to commit ourselves to fighting for. It's not just, the fact that communities of color are dying at astonishing rates, but also the way that women are disproportionately affected. A lot of women are now stuck at home with abusers. I just saw a statistic that domestic violence is up 30% in the era of coronavirus. And at the same time that women are literally stuck home with people who are abusing them, there are at least 3 states that have taken this opportunity to try to suspend abortion access. So it's the same, there's always an excuse for why women should not have our inalienable rights to our bodily integrity, and other people should be making decisions about our body. But in this global health crisis, there are, frankly, men that are trying to make decisions about how women can handle our own health and our own lives. So in this moment, it feels, just as I said before, like people are dealing with their own challenges, and those challenges are really being amplified by the situation that we're faced in terms of the virus. But it's also the same in terms of communities that are hardest hit, and that's also amplified in terms of how difficult, their plight is. And then one other quick thing along the same lines, in terms of, just today, in terms of the restriction to abortion access, one of those 3 states that I mentioned is Texas, and the appeals court today said that the governor could ban abortion access for women, and it's consistent with, I think, a lot of the politicization of the judicial system right now, and even voters in America right now are oppressed. In Wisconsin today, voters had to risk their lives to go to the polls to vote because the Supreme Court last night said that they were not going to allow a delayed vote to push the primary back to June. So if we're not able to wrestle democratic control of, all of our institutions at this point, I think that all Americans are ultimately going to be oppressed because we're not going to have a say. We're not going to be living in the representative democracy that I hope we were in before this virus, but I think a lot of would.
I think also, and if I can push you a little bit, I think there are people like you who always think about the marginalized, but a lot of our day we can sort of shut our eyes to it, right? And only open it when we're doing social justice, or only when we're activists, or only when we're voting. And I think this sense of oppression that we're sort of bound to our homes, stuck with our spouses, whatever that looks like for you, it's not slavery, but it's something else. And I do think that this moment, as you said, is giving us an opportunity to see the world anew and to realize that the marginalized are even more highly impacted, and that it's more upon us. And I think that's the task as a Jew is, I have to just share my mother we'd walk out the door every day, and I would get so mad at her because she would never say to me on my way to school, "Go, be happy, have a great day." She would say, "Go and make the world better." And I would think, can't you be like all the other mothers? She said, "No, you're a Jew. You're responsible to make it better." And I think she would be smiling on the both of you right now. So
it's beautiful.
The Jewish community devotes different areas to different communities. And I would ask you, Archie, where do you think the Jewish community in this moment should be devoting its efforts?
To the people on my little circle, to the red circle. And I think that they are, and I'm a Jewish funder too, so I'm going to put myself in this space. I think we are kind of paying lip service to doing that. I think what happens is that we talk about engagement and we talk about outreach, and what happens is and I'm going to sort of name the big Jewish brands because that's what we all know. The same child gets PJ Library, and the same child goes to Jewish camp, and that same kid goes to Hillel when they get to college, and then maybe they live in a Moishe house, or they go on Birthright, and now we're gonna, Moishe will be at the end of that. And it's like all of this care, and all of those are good, but the thing is, it's those same young people who are doing all of those things. What we are missing is the people on the outside of those circles. And it is astonishing to me how that we're not sort of harder on ourselves, or that the Jewish community writ large sort of knows this, but yet we have not seemed to be able to sort of really focus on the people who are not not entering the door, the doors. And do
you have a recommendation, like what each of us can do to pull someone in?
Yeah.
Because please tell us.
It's not about it's really about honest conversations, and it's about really saying to the people who are not entering the door. Like I also feel like with the Jewish community and the funder community, there's a lot of like, we congratulate ourselves because we send people to Israel for free. And it's like, oh my God, we're sending them on a free trip to Israel. That's not a reason to congratulate ourselves. That means someone took a free trip. It's great, and they're going to Israel, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, I don't see that that's such a huge win for the Jewish community because someone went on a free trip. It's like, what are they doing after that? And how are they? I mean, that's why I invented JewBelong, because Judaism doesn't live in Israel. Judaism lives in your heart. And my feeling is that if people find something that they love about Judaism, then they will keep with it. And if they don't find something they love about Judaism, then they leave it by the wayside and they find something that makes their heart beat. So the hard conversations that I think are difficult are really are asking people like, not why did you leave in a critical way, but really like digging deep underneath and find and really see what works for them. I mean, if I have to say to people, listen, if you drop a lot of Hebrew words in this conversation and you think that you're being welcoming, you're not being welcoming, because half of the people don't understand Hebrew. So why do you need, I mean, I know the Hebrew words, I've been around, but it's very hard.
I love that tip. And for those of you that play insider baseball, meaning you speak the Jewish language and you do the Jewy thing, it's not either or, but you want to create as much welcoming as possible. And we are the people that literally made an open tent, Haknasat Orachim, which means we welcome in guests. And, you know, if there's not unexpected people at our Shabbat table, my kids complain. And I imagine it's pretty much the same at your tables as well, because as my kids say, we get sick of seeing each other.
I just want to add one thing, Sherry, because this is sort of, and when we have a Jewish experience, if it's not amazing and it's not inspiring, then we shouldn't, then there's something wrong. And I'll give you an example. So as I mentioned, I have kids and I have a daughter, and she was dating a guy who's not Jewish. And so, I mean, big deal. It's probably 90% of the people watching here. You may not be a JewBelong person, but if you're not a JewBelong person, someone else is. So I looked at it as my job that every time her boyfriend came over for Shabbat or Rosh Hashanah or Passover, it was so much fun that, because JewBelong is fun and it was interesting and it was meaningful, that if push comes to shove and they stayed together and they decided to get married, he would say, of course I want to be Jewish, and of course I want Jewish children, because that was a hell of a lot of fun at your mom's house all those years that we went to all those Jewish experiences. And I mean, I want Jewish grandchildren. Like, I'm very upfront about it. I want that. And it doesn't happen because I want it and am quiet about it. It happens because I mean, that's just my family, but it's the whole world. Like, if there is a Jewish experience, using that muscle to say, this should be important is really important for all of us.
So beautiful. I think we can drop all the denominations and just call it joyful Judaism. And I think
meaningful,
meaningful, joyful Judaism. So I'm going to pause here because I know we have a lot of questions coming in, and we've got a big audience that is anxious to ask the both of you a lot of questions. If you're just tuning in or you're just continuing, I'll remind you that I'm with Amanda Berman of Zionists. I'm Sherre Hirsch of the American Jewish University in Los Angeles. And I'm also with Archie Gottesman, who's calling in from New Jersey, from JewBelong and New York. So we're representing all the coasts tonight. So I'm just going to turn to a couple questions. We're getting a lot of feedback from our listeners, and I want to share them with you. So it says that I would say the challenge, and this comes from a listener, I would say that for me, the challenge is that we are observant in our home to a certain degree, but traditional synagogues and communities feel like a club that you either are in or you don't belong. So when you don't fit the mold and you don't feel like you're fitting in, like, how do you break in, or where do you find a path to, by the way, American Jewish University, JewBelong, Zionist, but I think that's a question that people are asking is like, how do I find my way when I don't feel like I belong in all the traditional Jewish settings, even though I want to live a Jewish life?
Okay, well, I'm going to take a shot at that. Number one is you got to be a little less judgmental. I've had the exact same question. I looked at all the synagogues in my town, ended up joining 2 and then ended up joining 1. And did they fit perfectly? No, they didn't fit perfectly. But so what? Like, I had to, like, my standards were a little different, but that's okay. It was the Jewish community. We needed to belong, and we belong today. So I really tried to sort of stop some of the judgment about like why it wasn't the right place for me. That's one, because it's not going to be perfect. They're just people. If you really care about it and have the time and energy, then go in and change it. That's hugely, usually it's super possible in a lot of Jewish institutions because they're dying for people with energy and focus. But I don't know this person's specific space. But so that's one. It's not going to be perfect. It never is. And the other is
right. So there's 31 flavors. You try different flavors, but no flavor is exactly right every day of the week.
Exactly. And you, so what? Like, it's not going to be the exact right place, but it's right for that. And then the other one is you hope.
And you hope. Wait, you said you hope, Archie?
No, and the second part of that is you also create your own. Like, it is so. If you feel comfortable having Shabbat dinners, you do them and you invite people. When I started having Shabbat dinners, I just started inviting people, and it was quite amazing how many people say yes. Like, people you think, oh, they're so busy and nobody wants to come, and they all want to come because people are craving community. This is before, obviously, what we're in now. This is for years and years. So there is that business of creating your own.
The desire for connection. Amanda, what would you say to the person that wants to be deeply connected but can't find their home necessarily in a traditional synagogue?
So I actually am not a member of a synagogue, and I grew up as a member of synagogue. I was bat mitzvahed, and my synagogue was a place that I spent a lot of time and had a lot of friends, and a place that was very meaningful for my family. But it's now so many Jews are not affiliated with synagogues and are finding other ways and other experiences that connect them to their Jewish identity. And for me right now, I think really the core component of my Jewish identity is Zionism, hence Zioness, and the connection that I feel to Israel and the Jewish story. I see Zionism as just our peoplehood, our story. I think thinking about what you see in terms of your family's most organic relationship to Jewish practice and Jewish tradition, and activating that. There are so many options, and I learn about a new one every single day, a different option for a different kind of Jewish experience. And I've been really trying to find time to try them all and to really figure out what my Judaism looks like. I don't have a family right now, but what do I want it to look like when I do? I mean, it's questions that I think you have to ask yourself. And I really do think that, going back to the ice cream flavor analogy, you can mix and match. You can do two different scoops. You can join a synagogue, and then also, if your Judaism commits you to social justice, get involved with Zioness. Or if you feel like your synagogue, represents some part of your Jewish connection, but not all of it, because you want to be welcoming, members of your community who are not Jewish, then JewBelong is a perfect home for you. I mean, there are so many options. And for this person, I would say, if you're looking for the options, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know all of them, but I know a lot of them. I know Archie knows, those of us who are doing this work all the time get to meet lots of amazing Jewish activists running tons of different, creative organizations. And the last thing I want to say, just because it keeps coming up as I'm listening to this conversation, I keep being reminded of something I think Sherry said early on, which is that there are a lot of different doors. Was that what you said, Sherry? There are a lot of doors for entering Judaism, and I've experienced that so many different times. And, Zioness, I want to be a door to capture people who, come first with their progressive identities, which I really think is most Jews, especially, millennials and younger people, come first with their progressive identities, and their Jewish identities are intertwined with that. But they're focused much more on domestic issues that are, immediately affecting their lives. And they don't actually realize that there's any challenge to being a Jew in some of those spaces. So there are so many different doors. And when I launched Zioness, it was because I felt that there was a void in the community. But I often say there aren't that many voids. There are actually, I think, way too many organizations, and a lot of them are sort of duplicative or at least stepping on each other's toes. And so I really feel like there would be something that would be the right flavor, or at least a combination of things that would be the right flavors for this person's family. So feel free to reach out.
I love that image of mixing flavors and mushing them together and stirring them up, because, I think that really is the essence of creating a meaningful Jewish life for yourself and for others. And I also love that you shared with the story, right? We all have a story we tell ourselves, that I don't belong, right? That I'm somehow an outsider. And yet the nature of our story is everybody has a seat at the table. And our journey is to figure out, how to make that seat feel right for us. And I love that you said that, Archie. Sometimes it means making your own thing. Sometimes it means finding something else. And sometimes it means, you know, mixing all the flavors together and getting a big triple scoop of like, and just stirring them up. So I love that image. So getting a lot of emails about your website, how they can get in touch with you. We're going to post all that. I'm going to just say pause for a moment. We pushed this out to Facebook Live and we're having some problems with it. So for those of you that are not getting on Facebook Live, we will have a tape, a recording, not a tape. That was so 1980s. I'm dating myself, but we'll have a recording and you'll be able to hear it again. If you go to Biyachad Together at the aju.org, you'll be able to get all of our offerings. So another question is this ongoing pursuit of how to engage the young generation. And you especially, I'm going to start with you, Amanda. I mean, we're not of the same generation, although I'd like to pretend on TV, but that's a question I get a lot is, you know, how do you engage your generation and what do you think speaks to them? And we have parents like myself who are raising teenagers that aren't so connected, and we're worried, not because they're not going to be religious. We want them to feel that joy of Judaism. So what would you say to the parents out there about engaging their teenagers and the young generation and how we go about it?
So it's definitely different for everyone, but my big sort of the phrase that I think moves me with my work with Zioness every day is that we really need to meet people where they are. And since I don't know, I don't know, Sherry, where your kids are exactly, but I could probably guess if I were profiling them based on my profile of you. And I think a lot of young Jews are where I am. I think statistics would show that a lot of young Jews are deeply committed to the advancement of the progressive agenda in America, and that's their primary focus because those are the things that they're reading about and listening to, and that they're seeing their friends affected by every single day, especially once they're on college campuses and they are, surrounded by diverse communities. They're being challenged academically. They're seeing the world in a different way, and they want to make the world better. And Sherry, as you said, that your mom would send you off to school until you make the world better every day. My mom said something very similar, and she was making the world better every day. And so that's, and I think a lot of Jewish families raise their children, along the same vein. And as you said, that actually reminded me, my dear mentor, Yossi Klein Halevi, wrote in his book, and it was the first time I knew this, and a lot of people have probably read Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor, where Yossi explained that the Jewish people, when we say we're a chosen people, it's not chosen for privilege or chosen for status. It's chosen with the obligation to be a light unto the nations and to make the world a better place. So I think a lot of young Jews feel that, like in our core, that's a commitment that we were born into as a member of the Jewish people. And, as we've said a few times now, that is also, the core component of the Passover holiday. So one of many core components of the Passover holiday, but meeting them where they are there with those domestic issues, with policy issues, how can we fight for justice and equality and equity and civil rights and civil liberties for all people, and then bringing Judaism along with that, and making sure that they know you can be a very proud Jew, you can fight for equality and civil rights and liberation for all people, including yourself. You don't have to abandon your community in the fight, for all of those things for other communities. That's something that a lot of, I think, young Jews are struggling with because they're facing, frankly, what I see as anti-Semitism in these spaces. That doesn't mean we should cede the spaces. It means we should double down in our commitment to showing up in them, but also owning our narrative and talking about why Zionism is so consistent with all of those domestic commitments.
Can we just blast that over every freeway or once traffic? I mean, it's just,
I talk a lot.
I'm so impressed hearing that. I'm so impressed hearing with both of you. We have just a few minutes left. Archie, what you're doing on Thursday with JewBelong is found. You have to tell everybody.
Okay, on Thursday.
And you have all my friends coming.
Yay! Okay, about 2 weeks ago, when it looked like I kept thinking like this isn't really gonna last, or maybe it was 3 weeks ago. I was like, oh, we really are gonna have to not have people over for Seder, and I usually have two big ones. Decided to have a JewBelong virtual Seder, and it's Thursday night at 7. And if you want to know about it, you just can go on our website or follow us on Instagram or Twitter, all the social. But this is the coolest thing, is because mind you, I'm a marketer. Like, JewBelong is about rebranding Judaism. I said that at the beginning. So I reached out. And so I was very conscious about sort of saying, how can this be something fun and interesting and have sort of personalities and celebrities? So I'm lucky. I know Joanna Coles, who's a big media personality. Alicia Reiner, who is an amazing actress. She's pretty famous in a lot of things, but Orange is the New Black is one of her major shows. And
we're having Alicia. Alicia and her husband are speaking about marriage in just about a week, a little after Passover.
She's such
I married them.
And anyway, they're amazing, or she's amazing. I don't know him. Anyway, and they said, yeah, I want to help. And Joanna and Alicia, and then we just started asking people, and we have they're my co-hosts, but we have about 25 readers who are involved. Cory Booker, Senator Cory Booker is doing a reading. Lots of actor types are doing it, because you know what? It's like, it's going to be so good. I'm so excited. But it's doing Judaism in a really, it's going to be touching. We have a lot of it that's been pre-recorded, and then the three of us are going to be live because that was just a technical way to do it. But there's parts of it that are like so funny, and there's parts of it that are so just touching. And it's following the JewBelong Haggadah, the one I showed you before. So basically, some people are printing it out and coming to their computers. Some people are, I don't know what they're doing. I'm not seeing them all. I'm at home. But on the instructions, it's like, come to bring your Seder plate to the computer if you want. And to JewBelong, the way we do it is, or we've never done it before, but what we're doing is we're basically saying, you know, here's what you can bring, and we're going to do a lot of the rituals together. For example, we're going to, rather than bring salt water, we're asking people to bring a salt shaker, salt and water, and we're going to do it together, because making salt water in the kitchen and then bringing it to your computer, then it's just like, oh, fine, I bought the salt water. But if we really take a moment and breathe and like know that we're mixing the two, and now it's like, and it really is sort of, then it becomes, you know, the sweat of our ancestors, the tears of all of us now in this space, and really like doing these rituals together. Like thousands of people will be doing it all over. It's not even just America. There's people in Italy and London and who will sort of do this kind of together. And so we'll go through the Seder, and it is, I'm just so excited about it, and just so thrilled that the people who said yes, they're like, they just jumped in and they did it. And it's and it is a lot of the JewBelong kind of audience. The people are like, yeah, this isn't like, Judaism's not a big part of my life. It's not what I lead with at all. But yeah, hell yeah, I'll do a reading. This sounds cool. And they're doing it. So
I love that. And
really excited.
We just have a couple minutes. I want to say a couple things. One is Alicia Reiner, who you just mentioned, is on Orange is the New Black, and her husband, David Beish, will be coming to B'Yachad. They'll be talking about living together during this time, because as you said, Amanda, it's a lot to cohabit, and it's having also negative effects on certain populations, but also it's just a lot to be with your partner all of the time. Usually you're used to a different rhythm. This Sunday, we're also having Ellie Burrows, the founder of Mindful in New York, to do some meditating. And then the morning after Pesach, come break bad bread with us. It's Breaking Bread with Eliza Klein of One Table, another extraordinary organization, and Beth Riccanati, the author of Braided. So we have a lot of offerings to keep you busy. So I want to close with one final question for each of you, and this is important. What's your best afikomen hiding place? Amanda, I'll start with you. Afikomen is that part of the Seder where you hide the matzah, and someone has to find it. In our house, it's a very competitive sport. So Amanda, tell us your best hiding place. I need to know for my children this year.
Well, you should see the size of my New York City apartment. There are not a lot of hiding spaces. But I think I would probably put it in a plant, which I guess would make it not edible. I just think that would, I have a plant with big leaves that I could hide it in. I wish my 2-year-old nephew was here to come and find it. But can I quickly do a JewBelong plug? I know I'm not here for that, but there's something really meaningful about JewBelong for me that I really would love to share if we have time.
Please let's do one final afikomen, and then, because everybody's asking for your websites and everything, and I want you guys to put it up, but I also want to be mindful of the time. Archie, tell us your final afikomen hiding place.
Oh, well, I actually, Amanda gave me the hint for this one. We were talking about this. Because most of us are gonna be on computers. I'm not gonna tell you what we're doing at JewBelong because we're literally giving Venmo prizes. When you find the afikomen, so I'm not gonna tell you exactly what we're searching for, but it's such a cool idea if you're having a Zoom Seder with your own family, or then pick something on the internet. Like, I don't care. You could have said, find the link of Amanda and Archie talking at American Jewish University, first one to find it, boom, that's the afikomen. I mean, you make it up. Like, it's find the link that the Brady Bunch showed. I'm like, I don't care. Or just like, you just find something and then you have them find who finds the first 4 pictures of matzah on Martha Stewart's. I'm just making this up. So anyway, but it's so much. This Seder is such a good year to just lean in and think of fun things and just like go with it. So any of those can be really fun.
What a beautiful note to end on. I want to especially thank Amanda and Archie for being with us. I want to thank all of you for continuing to join us on Bayachad, together, spirited by AJU. We hope that you'll come back many a times. You'll keep coming to our website and learning about all the extraordinary offerings. Of course, if you're in Los Angeles, we'd love to see you in person when the stay-at-home order is over. But we look forward to hosting Zionists and JewBelong in person. We wish you, Archie, tremendous mazel tov, tremendous luck on the Seder on Thursday. We'll all be watching. And Amanda, we look forward to having many more voices like yourself really representing the next generation. I couldn't be more proud of the work that the two of you do. We're delighted, and we thank you so much. And Hag Sameach, happy holidays.
Thank you.